All right, we're doing an emergency Chris Holtmann podcast. We just got done doing mostly sports. It is 11:11. Hey, look at that. Make a wish. On Wednesday, news just broke like literally 10 minutes ago that Chris Holtmann has in fact been fired. TJ, we were doing mostly sports, and TJ brought to my attention that there were rumors swirling that it was going to happen today. I didn't necessarily believe it, just in the sense that I felt like we were going to wait till the end of the season to do it, if we were going to do it at all. And I guess like that's my that's my initial reaction. By the way, I'll preface everything by saying this is just full stream of consciousness. I have zero notes. For those of you listening, those of you watching can tell that I obviously don't have notes in front of me. But yeah, this is just going to be a stream of consciousness. I'm probably going to be all over the place, but Ohio State basketball is a program that means obviously a ton to me. It is a very, very important institution to me. Not just the wins and losses, but just kind of how things are conducted and how people are treated and all that sort of thing that I think in modern college sports people roll their eyes at, but that sort of shit still matters to me. And Holtmann was always awesome at that part of it, of the humanity part of it, of treating people right, of treating guys like me right. Like, he called me within, I think, 48 hours of him getting the Ohio State job. He had reached out to me, and I was on the phone with him. I was like, Coach, I scored 9 career points for this program. You don't need to get me on your side or anything else. But he was just always super great to me. And so I guess I'll start by saying, like, was this a surprise? It's weird because I am both a little shocked and not surprised at all. And the part of me that's shocked is that it is the middle of the season, because this was not a guarantee. I don't think that we were going to fire Chris Holtmann at all, as it's become a trope for a lot of coaches on the hot seat, that they just need one more year, that they just give them one more year and let's see what happens next year. And I wasn't necessarily fighting for Holt to have one more year. As I said on the show, like, I've gotten to a point where I can't defend him anymore. I'm not going to call for his head, but I just the bottom has completely fallen out of this program, so I can't really defend where we're at anymore. But with Ohio State having a new AD coming in July, and Gene Smith is on his way out, I think Holt's buyout is like $15 million or something now. If we did it before April 1st, which we did. There were just a handful of reasons that giving him one more year may not make sense, and if you only are looking at wins and losses. But if you start squinting enough and you look at the roster and you're like, all right, a lot of these dudes will be a year older, but then a part of it's like, do we really want these dudes to be a year older? Like, these are the dudes that have had 2 now consecutive disastrous seasons. So between the money and that, and again, this does not matter to a lot of people. A lot of people only care about wins and losses. I understand that. I do not. I care about more than that. And Chris Holtmann in that department was A++. And so firing a guy mid-season who does not have any off-court issues, although funny enough, he did get a speeding ticket. I saw like a couple days ago, and he was like doing a press conference about, yeah, I got a speeding ticket on the way to the game. I think it was the Maryland game. I think it was a couple of games ago. So maybe that was it. Maybe that was the off-court incident that got him fired. But yeah, Holt, in my mind, the only time you fire a guy mid-season is one. There have to be a few factors. One, the money is not a deterrent, which I felt like it might be in this situation, like the buyout being $15 million, or at least that's what I have been told before. I've never read Chris Holtmann's contract, but that seems to be the figure that everyone's throwing around. 2, an off-court incident. He gets in some sort of legal trouble. He yells at players in like he's throwing balls at practice, or I don't know. There's just like there's some story that comes out that the locker room, he's just a total fucking asshole to everybody, which that wasn't the case at all. Like I said, he's a very, very great dude, who I will root for wherever Holtmann ends up. I will be a fan of that program, and I will root for Chris Holtmann to find success at his next stop for sure. So that box wasn't checked. And the third situation, which I think this is the box that was checked, is the bottom just completely falls out, and any momentum that the program might have positive-wise is completely gone, and you start to build some negative momentum. And that's really the thing, is like guys have bad seasons here and there, but you have to, I think when you're an AD and a fan and you get the itch to fire coaches, and fans always want to fire coaches before ADs do. There's rarely a situation where a coach gets fired for performance and it comes out of nowhere, and fans are like, what? I can't believe we're doing this. That rarely ever happens. But what fans need to remember and take into consideration is it's less about like a bad season. It's less about like we got to fire this guy because we only won 12 games this year or whatever the number is. And I think it's more about program momentum, and it's more about like, are you building towards something good? Have you and losing the momentum is not necessarily a death sentence. I think if you're like Holtmann definitely had the momentum when he took over the job. Keita Bates-Diop is All-American good, wins Big Ten Player of the Year 1 or 2, right out of the gate. I think that was year 1. I think that was whole year 1 because Keita was hurt Thad's whole last year basically. He played a few games and then got hurt, and even in the games he played, he wasn't fully healthy. And then Keita Bates-Diop comes back. I think we won like 25 games that year in Holt's first year, and there was momentum, and it was all like building towards basically the 2021 season when we almost won the Big Ten tournament, took Illinois. The Big Ten was loaded that year. We almost won the Big Ten tournament. But that's kind of the story of the whole era. Is like the successes were always almost. And then we lose to Oral Roberts in 2021 in the first round of the tournament, which, like looking back on the 2021 tournament, it is like every other sport. It is kind of like almost a fever dream of a situation where you're like, we were doing what with what? No fans, and you're stuck in all these, and it was a weird dynamic, and you want to pretend like the results don't count, but they did. And I think that was definitely a huge blow to the program momentum, but you can sustain not having momentum. You can just like keep the status quo, and you can wait to figure out find some more juice to like build it back up. You can do all that. What you can't do, and where Ohio State basketball has found itself, you cannot have negative momentum, and you cannot have like that's where the program, you cannot be going downhill and hitting the accelerator as you're doing it, and that's where we have found ourselves as a program, and that's ultimately why I think they fired him midseason, is because it certainly wasn't the first two things. This did not make monetary sense, and it had nothing to do with his ethics. As far as I've not heard one peep about anything like it's obviously not that. So to do it midseason, it has to be at a point where it feels like the bottom has completely fallen out. It feels like letting this guy continue to coach one more game is actually negatively hurting the team. If it's me, I would argue he should have finished the season. I think he deserved to finish the season. I think the bottom has fallen out, but I think if Ohio State loses every game from here, I don't think it's any more damage than has already been done. I do think he probably should have been fired at the end of this year. But I don't necessarily love that it happened in the middle of the season, but we're kind of splitting hairs at this point. And as Brandon Walker pointed out to me on Mostly Sports, like the silver lining in it is you are first to the buffet. You are the first person to we are the first like major program to now have a coaching vacancy, and how much that matters I don't know, but at least we can start the search now, and you won't be rushed into trying to find a coach and make sure you lock a guy up who's rumored to be going somewhere else or anything else. You just start calling guys now, and you start figuring out what that process looks like now. But yeah, it's a bittersweet day. Like, you never want your coach to be fired. I think a lot of Buckeye fans are probably very happy about this because of what's to come, and the idea of filling in. Not having a coach is a good spot to be in the sense that you can paint whatever fantasy you want. And right now, Brad Stevens has not said no to the Ohio State job. Right now, like that's the reality. It's like Greg Popovich has not said no to the Ohio State job. Billy Donovan has not said no. Jay Wright he has not said no to the Ohio State job as far as I know. So when you're in this position, you're like, dude, you just start building fantasies that go a million different directions, and you can kind of fill in the blanks however you see fit. So I understand why the temptation would be there to be very happy about this if you're a Buckeye fan, because, we did have negative momentum. I like Holt a lot. I like that coaching staff a lot. I like the players a lot. They're all great guys. But there is negative momentum to the point that the handful of times on this show that I've tried to bring up Ohio State basketball, that was what I was like. That's why I was losing my mind about this team, is that there is just no juice whatsoever. This is just the program is deader than dead, and just something has to be done about that. So
who's the main course at that buffet then? If you're first the buffet, is it a guy from another school? Is it a guy who's out there doesn't have a job? Is it a podcast host? Is it a
it might be a podcast host. I think we have to look at I think you have to take a long hard look at the podcast host market and ask yourself two questions. Who represents Ohio State basketball the most,
right.
And who knows ball? I think those are the two things. And I don't know if there's a candidate out there that checks both of those boxes, but
Evan Turner hosts a podcast?
Since Evan Turner does host a podcast, actually. Evan Turner actually does host a podcast.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Evan. So here's I'll answer it. Remind me to answer your question, TJ, because I might go off the. I do want to answer it, but you brought up Evan. Evan and I have been texting about this team about this, not this particular team. This run of Ohio State basketball for 3 or 4 years now, where we just bitch at each other about what has become the Chris Holtmann era. Because Evan and I, excuse me, I'm burping here. Evan and I did build something at Ohio State, the two of us together in conjunction. Evan winning National Player of the Year, of course, in 2010, and me scoring 9 career points. We both were doing the heavy lifting on building that program into what it is. But that the stark contrast of what Ohio State basketball was under Thad Matta and what it was under Chris Holtmann was very, very frustrating. It always was. And it wasn't wins and losses. And I know that sounds crazy because it ultimately always does come back to wins and losses. That's basically all that matters. But I swear to you, it was just like the feeling of the culture in the building. It was the feeling of like the players' approach to like the players. And I don't want to single any one guy out. I don't want to like throw these again. These are great dudes, but there just kind of was a sense throughout the Holtmann era of like finishing top 4 in the Big Ten was cause for celebration, or like we won one NCAA tournament game. Let's be really, really happy about it. And it was always like baffling to those of us that played under Thad because we went to the Final Four my freshman year. We lose to Florida, who brought back 5 starters and already won the national championship. And every single person outside of our locker room was like, yeah, I mean, like, of course Florida was going to win the national championship. You guys had an unbelievable fucking year. You should be very proud of what you accomplished. And yet, like, as time goes on, you are proud of what you – but, like, nobody in that program was happy that we lost to Florida. There's no part of, like, what a season we had, what a run we had. We were mad. We were always mad. We won the NIT and we threw the trophy away. that was what the standard was at that program. Like when we go to the NIT, we win the thing. We're on the court. It was the most bizarre celebration I've ever seen in my life. NIT Stu, by the way, I know you listen to the show. Apologies for all of this. This is very upsetting for you to hear. I know, but I'm just speaking my truth here. We win the NIT. We're on the court, and it is the most bizarre celebration you've ever seen because we're kind of like hugging each other and celebrating because I think we felt like we were supposed to, as they're like pulling out ladders to cut down nets and and throwing us T-shirts that say NIT champions and all that shit. And then we get into the locker room, and Coach Matta's speech immediately was like, "Fuck this shit, dude! Like we don't. This isn't what this program is. We're not trying to win the NIT. We threw the trophy away. As far as I know, that's what I was told. I told we got back to campus and the coaches just took the trophy and threw it in the garbage. So anyway, I went on this tangent because you brought up Evan, TJ, and Evan and I text about that. Like even when we were winning games under Holt, we would just text about like the culture of the program has completely shifted to where like like Mana used to always tell us, you have to hate to lose more than you love to win. And I think the guys under Chris Holtmann loved to win more than they hated to lose. And like when they would win, they would be very happy, and when they would lose, it'd be like, oh shucks, that's all right. We, like it didn't, like, there wasn't like a pit in their fucking stomach that like made their lives miserable. And that might sound, I don't know, I'm gonna sound like an old man, but like that might be just like kids these days, or this generation, or whatever you want to say, whatever turn of phrase you want to use. I don't, like, maybe there is some positives to that there's more of like a work-life balance. I know this isn't their jobs, but the Dartmouth team is trying to argue it is. Maybe it's healthy that like these guys don't go home and like just sulk after they lose, and they have lives outside of basketball. I'm just telling you from our experience, if we would lose a couple games in a row, we would all be fucking disgusted. We would all like, yeah, and I understand how old I sound, that we would, dig deep and find a way, and all these things that you can't really, you can't really define what they are, and kind of sound like they're made up things. But I'm just, again, speaking from my experience, like there were times where we would lose a couple and you would just know we weren't going to lose. Like we were just like, we will fucking fight everybody in this gym if that's what it takes to win this game, because I swear to God, I will not go back into that locker room a loser again. It won't happen. And there was just kind of never that feeling. Even on the good Holtmann teams, there was kind of never that feeling. And that's why it's like hard, because like to be a good guy sometimes in college sports, it's hard to be a good guy and be a good coach sometimes. Quick break to talk about DraftKings. I am excited to announce that we have partnered with DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings will be our one-stop shop for all things betting. This week, new customers who deposit $5 or more can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 on any sport. What's a no-sweat bet? It's just like getting an offensive board. Miss your first shot, you get another chance to score with a bonus bet back. You can also follow what all of your favorite Barstool personalities are betting on by joining the Barstool betting group on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Titus. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 if your first bet loses. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook right now with code Titus. The crown is yours. So back to your question. What the question is, who do we hire, basically?
Yeah, you have the jump on the rest of the country on coaches. Who's getting those calls right now?
So like the dream guys, obviously, like Jay Wright and Brad Stevens aren't even worth calling, to be honest. Because I don't even want to be the program that tried to hire those guys. I don't even want people to point and laugh at us and be like, I can't believe you called Jay Wright and Brad Stevens. When the Indiana job was open, they called Brad Stevens. It was worth it, because there was a chance that you might as well take a swing at it and see if you can get it. Ohio State is not. So like I'm removing all of those guys. I'm removing the guys' names who get floated when it's like, what are we doing? Like you're not going to get Jay Wright to come to Ohio State. So I would take that out of it. If we're going the former player route, like the guy who understands Ohio State, if you're trying to appease like the former players, trying to get somebody in the family, so to speak, and all of that, the answer is Chris Gent, who badly wanted the job when Thad was fired. And I think if you would have asked all the former players who they wanted to have the job, if there was like one, if like all the former players had to come together and vote on a guy, it was Chris Gent. He's a guy who would absolutely bring the culture back. He's a guy who LeBron loves, which sounds stupid and doesn't matter, but it kind of does. That's just like the stupid nature of where we're at with college basketball. Like that sort of shit kind of does matter. Like it weirdly does matter that like you could have LeBron James come to Columbus, Ohio and work out all the time and like have his influence in the program and get like LeBron's son and our like, I don't know, that shit sounds stupid, and I apologize for bringing it up to people that are rolling your eyes, but like I do think that kind of stuff does matter. Gent, I don't think he has head coaching experience though, as far as I know. And I don't really know how I feel about that part of it, but and I also don't know if I fully do want a guy who, like, I don't know how much that matters to me. Like it matters greatly at a place like North Carolina, for example, and I imagine it'll matter for Duke moving forward if there ever comes a day where John Shire wants to move on or they want to move on from John Shire. I don't know if that needs to be the case at Ohio State, because it can go wrong, obviously. There are a lot of examples of Patrick Ewing at Georgetown and Juwan Howard at Michigan, who is going to get fired any day now. There are a lot of examples of like we tried to hire the guy who all the former players wanted. We tried to hire the guy who played here, and it it got everybody fired up, and it was a great press conference when we brought him in. But like he's not the guy, and I'm not saying Jen is or isn't. But that's if we do go that route, he's the guy though. If that's the path that Ohio State wants to go down, is let's hire the former player who gets the program and all that. It would be Chris Gent. The guy I expect, are they floating any names, by the way, TJ? Look that up for me. See if is Goodman saying Goodman texted me last night. I should have seen this coming because Goodman texted me last night about the free throw stream, and I ignored it because I was just exhausted and I didn't really – he was just like, damn, that was crazy. And then he followed it up with by the way, who do you want at Ohio State? And I thought he meant I thought that was his way of just basically getting me to respond to his initial text. I should have read between the lines that he knew that he was privy to some information. Is he floating out any names?
I don't see.
Okay, all right. I just didn't know if there was any. So the name that I would be okay with. I think is realistic, and I think will probably, if I was setting odds for this as to who will end up getting the job, would be Greg McDermott, I think. I think Greg McDermott at Creighton. There have been whispers for a while now that he doesn't love where he's at Creighton for whatever reason. That can mean a million different things. But I apologize to Creighton fans. I'm not trying to – This is the part that sucks, is because then now Creighton fans are like, fuck you, dude. Who do you think you are taking? And I'm not. I'm just telling you. I heard this a while ago, and before Ohio State was ever open, that Greg McDermott was not actively looking to get out of Creighton, but that he's just kind of the experience has run its course, we shall say, at Creighton, and I think Creighton's team next year is going to take a massive step back. They had a national title good team last year, came up short against San Diego State in the tournament, brought back most of those guys. Nimhard transfers to Gonzaga in a move that kind of hurt both parties. If Ryan Nimhard was there this year, they would be so much better. And Gonzaga also, Ryan Nimhard did not upgrade by going to Gonzaga, so that kind of sucks. But Creighton's still a good team. And could they could get hot and go on a run. They're Final Four good this year, I think. I don't think they're good enough to win a title, but they are good enough to make a Final Four at least. But next year they're not. I don't think they are going to be. And it wouldn't surprise me if Greg McDermott is that. That's part of what he has been on his horizon anyway. And the reason I bring up his name is because 7 years ago when Chris Holtmann got hired in the first place, it was down to him and Greg McDermott. Those were the two guys. Those were the two candidates. We offered the job to Holt, and he took it. I don't remember if we actually offered McDermott and he turned it down or not. But there was very real interest in both parties 7 years ago between Greg McDermott and Ohio State. And from what I've been told, he's not actively, again, Creighton fans, I'm sorry. I'm not telling you that your coach is trying to leave and is desperate to get out of there. I don't necessarily think that's the case. But I do think he is in a situation where I do think he would take the job, and I do think he is going to be on the list of candidates that we pursue. So that's kind of where I'm at. Is those are the first two names that come to mind, is Chris Gent and Greg McDermott. But basically that's because those were the two guys that 7 years ago those were the two non-Chris Holtmann guys that we were talking about the most. So, I don't know. Jerome Tang has my attention. I don't love that he's not a court storming guy. Don't love that. But damn, he can coach a basketball team, that guy. Yeah, when you start connecting the dots that he's at Baylor forever. They win a national title. Their defense is incredible. He leaves Baylor. Kansas State becomes incredible overnight. Baylor can't play defense anymore. I don't know. There's just a lot to be excited about there. I would love to see defense return to Columbus. That used to be a foundation and a staple of our program, and it's been thrown out the window. Who else is realistic? Mick Cronin is a guy who I think there's a path. There is a path. I think Mick Cronin is kind of in a similar boat as McDermott, where I don't think he's actively trying to get out of UCLA, but I do think that Mick Cronin is definitely taking phone calls for sure. And I think his situation, I think the honeymoon period in LA has expired, and I do think there's some wonky, we shall say, things going on in the UCLA athletic department right now. Hence, their head coach leaving to coach and to be the offensive coordinator. Their head football coach leaving to be an offensive coordinator at a in conference, at a different team that's in conference. So yeah, Mick Cronin's an Ohio guy, Cincinnati guy. I would not be surprised if he took the job, or if we make the phone call there. I would be fine with that as well. He's not having a great year at UCLA, but they are sneakily not ass. They've turned it around a little bit. But I think Cronin is eyeballing the Louisville job more. So I think of Louisville, and it's going to be a hell of a coaching carousel. If Michigan fires their coach, I do think, I keep mentioning coaches that are interested in moving on. All of this is speculation, by the way. I've heard some stuff about McDermott, so that one's a little less speculation. But Musselman at Arkansas is another guy that I don't think is desperate to get out of there. This is just me speculating that I do wonder if that's, again, not run its course, but they're having a bad year. The warts start showing when you have a bad year, and you start when everything's going well and you're winning, you fucking love the place. When you're losing, you start noticing things about the place that you didn't notice initially. And Eric Musselman has no ties to the state of Arkansas. He's a West Coast guy. So I'm not bringing up Eric Musselman for Ohio State. I'm bringing him up, although he does have ties to Ohio, because of his dad. He has ties everywhere. But I wonder if the Arkansas job might pop open, because Muss takes a different job. This carousel could be wild. Yeah. This offseason coaching carousel could be wild, because I think McDermott, I think Cronin, and I think Musselman are three guys that I would not be shocked if this offseason they took different jobs. And then on top of that, Louisville is going to be open probably. Michigan's probably going to be open. Ohio State is now open. Who knows what else is going to open up? Yeah, because if Cronin takes a job at Louisville, then UCLA is now open. And the trickle down from that could be pretty crazy. So anyway, those are the guys I would endorse, and I think those are real. I think McDermott and Cronin I would be fine with. And Cronin, I laughed at Cronin when he got hired at UCLA, less because I think Cronin's a bad basketball coach, and more because the fit was just so funny to me. And boy, he made me the fact that Archie Miller did not work at Indiana and Mick Cronin did at UCLA blows my mind. And after that, I've never once. Maybe I have, but I've tried to be careful on judging coaching hires, because Archie Miller at Indiana was the most no-brainer thing to me. That I was like, yeah, dude, he's gonna fucking kill it there. And Mick Cronin at UCLA, I was like, Cronin's a great coach, but holy shit, bad cultural fit there. That is not going to be a great cultural fit. And he's knocked it out of the park at UCLA this year, notwithstanding. So stuff on paper and stuff on the surface can sometimes not tell the whole story. And anyway, I say all that to say, if Mick Cronin, even though I people are going to throw that back in my face, TJ, that when Mick Cronin was hired at UCLA, I laughed, and it was not because I thought Mick Cronin was a bad coach. It was because he was so obviously their 12th choice. That part was funny to me. And then if you ask me to come up with coaches and how they carry themselves and their idea of what they want their program to be, and then you ask me what coach represents UCLA and what they want their program to be, and Los Angeles and Westwood and the West, that community at UCLA, I don't think you could find two more polar opposite answers, and that's why it was so funny to me when Mick Cronin went to UCLA. I think Mick Cronin is an Ohio guy, and I think if he went to Ohio State, that makes a ton of fucking sense. And I would be very happy with that. If I wake up in a couple months and find out that Mick Cronin will be the head coach of my program, I would be happy about that. I would be happy if it was Greg McDermott. I would be happy if it was Chris Gent. I'm probably going to need some more time to come up with other candidates, but yeah, that's it. That's pretty much all I got. I think that pretty much covers it. Thad.
Yeah, no Thad.
Thad's not taking the job. I just want everybody to know that. Thad is it's funny. It's a funny premise. Like, what if Thad goes to Ohio State and then Chris Holtmann just goes back to Butler? I get why you would think that, and if Thad took the job, that would be like my mom and dad getting back together after they got divorced. Like, I would be so fucking happy about that. But he's not. There's a 0% chance Thad Matta ever leaves Butler. 0. He will never. The Lakers could offer Thad Matta a job, the head coaching job, and I don't think he's taking the job. He's staying at Butler forever, and I'm happy for him because that's the job he wants, and he's very, very happy there, and they're having a hell of a year. They're gonna make the tournament probably this year. So Thad back to Ohio State would be awesome. But unless they're gonna offer him like $50 million a year, I don't know what the number is. It would have to be the highest paid coach in all of basketball and then some for him to even consider it, I think. But there's no shot he would even do it. And it's less about his feelings towards Ohio State and the fallout from that, and more that he just fucking loves Butler. That guy just lives and breathes Butler basketball. His wife went to Butler. His kids went to Butler. He went to Butler. He lived next to Butler's campus before Butler even hired him. It's just like he's not leaving Butler. So Thad Matta will not leave Butler. You heard it here first. But yeah, Ohio State's moving on. I do feel for Holt, and I will cheer for him wherever he goes. I'm a Chris Holtmann guy through and through. I love how he treated me, how he treated his players, how he treated everybody. He was a great representative of the university, and at a time when a lot of fans and a lot of people around college sports don't give a shit about that stuff, I do, and I didn't take it for granted, and I was very appreciative of that aspect of what he brought to Ohio State. But unfortunately, we just didn't. We lose. We lose every game we play, and the bottom is completely fallen out of the program. There's no juice whatsoever, and I think it had to be done to get the excitement back. It's beyond the winning and losing, man. Once you're turning on the TV and you're seeing just nobody in the crowd, and just it's just a bleak. Once I'm going back to former player dinners and nobody's showing up because they're just kind of embarrassed to be associated with the program these days. It's hard to come back from that. It unfortunately is, and I think Oral Roberts was the tipping point. I think when we lost to Oral Roberts, it shouldn't have been. I think there's a path forward. I think there was a world where you build on it and you keep fighting, and I think the rosters we had the last couple of years have been good, and I think the guys should be winning these games. But somewhere along the line, we lost the culture, and there was just no coming back from it. So. All right, we're going to be back on Friday. I'm still doing – this is an emergency show. I didn't do a show earlier in the week because of the free throw stream. It killed me. I was dead, but I've been revived. It's a miracle that I'm here today in front of you. But that's why we didn't do a show the other day. But we are still doing the show I promised everybody. If you haven't been paying attention to college basketball, here's what you need to know. Primer for the run-up to March Madness. That'll be coming on Friday. So, again, apologies in advance to all the college basketball diehards that, don't need me to spell all that out for you. But, the reality of the media world is there will be a lot of people that will listen to that show and will find it very useful. So, I'm going to go ahead and put that out on Friday. We have that to look forward to. I will talk to you then. In the meantime, I'm going to go Google all the coaches in the world whose wives are from Ohio. And hopes that their wife will convince them to move back to Ohio. At the top of the list, Brad Stevens. His wife is from Ohio. People forget. Maybe she's fed up with Massachusetts. Maybe she's ready to get back home. I take it all back what I said earlier about not calling Brad Stevens. I'm going to go call Brad Stevens right now and get him to Columbus. See you guys.